The story opens in darkness, not just in the physical sense of a late night street, but in the emotional atmosphere surrounding Maya Carter. She has just left the apartment of her toxic fiance, and every step she takes feels heavy, as if she's dragging the weight of years of suppressed pain behind her. The sting on her cheek is raw and physical, but it's also symbolic of wounds, far deeper wounds that can't be hidden beneath a hoodie. Her eyes, swollen from crying, tell the story of someone who has been silenced for too long, who has learned to swallow her hurt in order to survive. This is a moment of escape, but not yet freedom. It is the thin line between endurance and breaking. Maya doesn't yet know whether she is walking toward liberation or into another cycle of despair. The empty street mirrors her loneliness, amplifying the sense that she has no one in her corner. And yet, in that fragile space, there is a flicker of resilience and instinct that pulls her into a diner, a small decision that will prove pivotal. This choice, though seemingly ordinary, becomes the first crack in the wall she has built around herself. The first step toward an unexpected connection that will challenge everything she believes about pain, trust, and survival. Inside the diner, the harsh fluorescent lights expose more than Maya wants to reveal. She slides into a booth, not to eat, but to breathe, to buy herself a few stolen minutes where she doesn't have to explain or defend herself. That's when she notices Ethan Wells sitting 2 booths away, absorbed in his sketchbook. He is not looking at her in the invasive way she has grown used to, no judgment, no curiosity tainted by gossip, no calculating glance that measures what can be taken from her. His attention is quiet, his presence unassuming. Yet when his eyes do lift, he sees her trembling hands, the silent giveaway of someone holding themselves together by a thread. His words are few, almost casual. Whoever hurt you doesn't deserve to see you break. But to Maya, they land like a secret being unearthed. How could he know? She hasn't spoken, hasn't explained, hasn't offered a single detail. Still, his statement cuts through her defenses as if he has glimpsed a truth she spent years hiding. The diner, once a place of anonymity, becomes charged with something more recognition. For the first time in a long time, Maya feels seen, but not in a way that makes her shrink. Instead, she feels exposed and oddly comforted all at once. Maya's immediate instinct is to retreat. Vulnerability is dangerous in her world. It has always been turned against her, weaponized to keep her in chains. So she gathers herself, avoids eye contact, and rushes out of the diner as though distance can undo what just happened. Yet, as she steps back into the night, her mind replays Ethan's words, looping them like a haunting refrain. What unsettles her most isn't the accuracy of his observation, it's the way he looked at her when he said it. His eyes carried no pity, no condescension, no hunger for her story to satisfy his own curiosity. Instead, there was recognition, as though he too had walked through fire and come out scarred but standing. That look unnerves her because it disrupts the narrative she has built, that no one could ever truly understand her pain. Though she is shaken, there is a spark inside her that she cannot extinguish, a strange pull toward this stranger who didn't try to fix her, didn't demand her trust, but simply saw her. As the scene closes, the audience is left with Maya's inner conflict. Part of her wants to run as far as possible, but another part, small yet persistent, aches to return, to find out who Ethan is and why his words carried the weight of truth. This tension between fear and curiosity, between isolation and connection, is what sets the emotional foundation for the story to come. Maya Carter's daily life is one of quiet suffocation. At 27, she works tirelessly as a paralegal in a mid-sized law firm, the job that keeps her afloat financially, that barely scratches the surface of her mounting bills. The irony is not lost on her. She spends her days helping prepare cases that defend justice and fairness, while her own life feels like a prison sentence without trial. She is estranged from her parents, which deepens her isolation, though not without reason. Years of strained conversations with her mother, who dismisses Maya's struggles as overreactions, have left her feeling as though she has no safe place to turn. Into this void stepped Derek Hayes, a man the world admires. At 32, he is the kind of lawyer who commands respect in a courtroom and admiration at dinner parties. Charismatic, polished, and successful, Derek embodies everything Maya's mother believes is the pinnacle of stability. But behind closed doors, his charm curdles into cruelty. The public sees him as dependable, charming, and generous. Maya sees the man who uses silence to punish her, who reduces her confidence with casual humiliations, and who too often lets his temper land on her in slaps and scathing words. For Maya, Derek's apartment has become a gilded cage, outwardly enviable, inwardly unbearable. The tension is not in a single explosive event, but in the slow erosion of her sense of self, a daily gaslighting that makes her question her worth, her memory, even her sanity. This is Maya's present, not simply a bad relationship, but a state of survival where every day feels like walking on glass. In contrast to Derek's polished perfection, Ethan Wells enters the story as an unassuming yet deeply grounded presence. At 29, Ethan earns his living as a freelance illustrator, filling sketchbooks with fragments of his perspective on the world. But his art isn't born out of leisure, it's a lifeline, a way to process the scars of his past. A survivor of the foster care system, Ethan grew up ricocheting between unstable homes, enduring abuse that carved deep but invisible wounds into his identity. Unlike Maya, who is forced to conceal her bruises for fear of judgment, Ethan's scars are woven into his worldview, shaping a kind of empathy that doesn't demand explanation. When he looks at someone trembling, shrinking into themselves, he doesn't need words to understand what they are enduring. He recognizes it because he has lived it. This is why his seeing of Maya isn't supernatural. It's the rare ability of someone who has crawled through the same fire. For him, survival has bred sensitivity, not hardness. His quiet demeanor, his ability to sit in silence without demanding attention, creates a counterbalance to Derek's domineering presence. Ethan is not a savior figure in the traditional sense. He carries his own fragility, his own loneliness. But precisely because of this, he sees strength where others only see weakness. His introduction into Maya's life is less about dramatic rescue and more about recognition, the gentle acknowledgement of another wounded soul who refuses to let pain strip them of humanity. Maya's suffocation is compounded not only by Derek, but by the expectations of those who should love her unconditionally. Her mother, in particular, embodies the societal pressure that keeps women like Maya tethered to appearances rather than happiness. To her, Derek is the ideal partner, successful, well-spoken, financially secure. The bruises on Maya's heart and skin are invisible to her mother, or worse, willfully ignored. Conversations with her mother always circle back to the same refrain. Men like Derek don't come along every day. Don't throw this away over small issues. These words echo in Maya's mind, making her feel as though her pain is not valid, that her suffering is just the price of stability. This family pressure, combined with Derek's manipulation, traps her in a cycle where leaving feels impossible. She isn't just contending with a toxic fiancé. She is battling an entire narrative about who she should be, what she should value, and how much she is expected to endure. For the audience, the setup is clear. This isn't the story of someone who simply needs to break up with a boyfriend. Maya's entire life, her finances, her sense of self, her family ties, and even her safety hangs in the balance. The stakes are not about romance, but survival. This layered tension establishes the groundwork for the story. Maya must not only find the courage to walk away from Derek, but also the strength to untangle herself from the expectations and illusions that have kept her bound for so long. The inciting incident begins with Maya at her most vulnerable, trapped in the confines of Derek's world where every mistake is weaponized against her. The trigger is seemingly small. Paperwork she was supposed to file for him has been delayed. For most people, such an error might be brushed aside as an inconvenience, but for Derek, it is the perfect excuse to unleash the storm that simmers beneath his polished exterior. His voice rises to a roar, reverberating through the apartment, each insult striking with precision designed to erode Maya's already fragile sense of worth. When he seizes her phone and hurls it against the wall, the shattering glass feels like an extension of her breaking spirit. His words cut deeper than any physical blow. "You're pathetic. Do you really think anyone else would ever want you? If you walk away, you'll have nothing, no one." To Derek, this is control reminding her that she is dependent on his approval, on a shadow of success. For Maya, it is the breaking point she has long feared, but also, paradoxically, the first spark of clarity. She feels the sting not just of his cruelty, but of the realization that the cycle will never end if she stays. Her fear mixes with desperation. The question is no longer whether she can endure Derek's abuse, but whether she can survive leaving him. This eruption sets the stage for what comes next, the possibility of an unexpected shift, a chance encounter that will tilt her life in a direction she never anticipated. The following day, Maya retreats to the diner again, needing space to collect herself, though she hides her trembling beneath a mask of composure. The world outside has no idea that her private life is in ruins. She slips into her usual booth, hoping for solitude, but fate intervenes. Ethan, the quiet stranger she noticed before, chooses this moment to bridge the gap. Without asking, he slides into the seat across from her, his presence calm and unthreatening. Maya's first reaction is resistance. Her instincts, honed by years of gaslighting, tell her that exposure is dangerous, that anyone who notices her pain will only use it against her. But Ethan doesn't press. He doesn't probe her with questions or demand explanations. Instead, he offers a single statement that pierces through her walls. "You don't have to explain." "But I know what it's like to be caged." The words hang heavy between them. And for the first time in a long while, Maya doesn't feel judged. She feels recognized. Unlike Derek, who twists her vulnerabilities into weapons, Ethan leaves her with no obligations, no conditions. His presence is not about control, but about solidarity, a quiet acknowledgement that he understands her suffering without needing to define it for her. This moment plants the seed of trust, though Maya is not yet ready to embrace it fully. What makes Ethan's approach transformative is its simplicity. He offers nothing but steady companionship, which, for someone starved of genuine care, becomes an act of profound rebellion against the loneliness she has carried. The true inciting spark comes not from words, but from images. After a few moments of silence, Ethan slides his sketchbook across the table. Maya hesitates, wary of what she might find, but curiosity overtakes her. As she flips through the pages, she is struck by the haunting rawness of his art, drawings of bruised hands clenched in defiance, birds trapped in cages, shadowy figures curled in corners, and eyes staring out with a mixture of fear and resilience. These sketches are not abstractions. They are lived experiences etched in graphite and ink. In them, Maya sees her own life mirrored back at her. For the first time, she realizes she is not imagining the weight of her suffering, not exaggerating as Derek has often accused. Someone else has walked the same path, felt the same suffocating grip, and found a way to transform pain into expression. The impact is immediate and profound. Her world, once narrowed by Derek's manipulation, suddenly cracks open to the possibility that she is not alone, and more importantly, not crazy. Ethan doesn't offer solutions or promises. He simply hands her proof that her scars are shared, that survival is possible. This exchange shifts the trajectory of her life. Ethan, the stranger who silently observed her, now becomes the catalyst for her awakening. In his recognition, she finds the first fragile thread of hope, a reminder that even in darkness, there are others who understand. It is the spark, small but undeniable, that begins to unravel the cage she has been trapped in. Maya begins to carve out fragile slivers of freedom, moments stolen from the suffocating grip of Derek's control. The diner becomes her sanctuary, a place where the fluorescent lights and the smell of stale coffee offer an unlikely kind of safety. Ethan is always there, never intruding, but waiting with the steady presence of someone who understands the language of silence. Their conversations are hesitant at first, like two strangers learning to walk across a bridge that could collapse beneath them at any moment. Maya speaks in fragments, careful, uncertain, testing how much of her truth she can allow into the open. Ethan doesn't push, doesn't offer advice or solutions. Instead, he listens with a rare attentiveness, sometimes responding not with words, but with a small sketch, a wilted flower struggling toward the light, or hands reaching through bars. These drawings are more than art. They are his way of saying, I know, I've been there too. Through these meetings, Maya feels the first sparks of validation, but with them comes fear. She knows that even these quiet exchanges are dangerous. Derek would never forgive her for seeking solace in another man's company, especially one who sees through the facade Derek works so hard to maintain. And so every coffee shared with Ethan is both a lifeline and a risk. Every word spoken, both a comfort and a betrayal of the cage she is still trapped in. Derek's suspicion doesn't take long to sharpen. He notices her small shifts in behavior, the way she checks her phone less often around him, the fleeting glimmers of calm that flicker across her face after time away. To Derek, who thrives on dominance, any change in Maya that he cannot control is a threat. He begins to monitor her phone obsessively, demanding to know who she's texting, scrutinizing her call logs, and criticizing her for any unexplained absence. What Maya once endured as subtle manipulation now escalates into invasive surveillance. Derek frames his control as concern, telling her she's lucky he cares enough to pay attention, twisting the knife deeper by suggesting that no one else would bother. Isolation becomes his weapon, cutting her off from coworkers after hours, discouraging her from visiting family, and planting the constant reminder that her world outside him is both dangerous and disloyal. Each day, Maya feels her breath shorten under his gaze, her steps more cautious, her voice quieter. What makes this escalation more unbearable is the futility of seeking support. When she reaches out tentatively to her family, hoping for a lifeline, her mother dismisses her concerns outright. To her, Derek is still the shining example of stability and success, the man who represents security in a world too unstable to risk. He's your best option, her mother insists, reducing Maya's anguish to ingratitude. That dismissal closes off another door, leaving Maya feeling trapped between a man who controls her every move and a family who refuses to see her pain. The emotional conflict intensifies within Maya as she stands at the intersection of two opposing forces, Ethan's quiet strength and Derek's tightening control. On one side, Ethan offers no ultimatums, no pity, only a steady reminder that she is not alone, that her feelings are valid. His empathy ignites a longing in her for freedom, for a life where she can breathe without fear. On the other side, Derek looms like a storm cloud, unpredictable and dangerous, his anger simmering just beneath the surface. Maya's fear is not abstract. It is visceral. She knows Derek's capacity for cruelty, knows how quickly his temper can shift from words to fists, and she is terrified of what he would do if he discovered her secret meetings. The diner, once a place of solace, becomes tinged with dread. Every glance over her shoulder, every unexpected ring of her phone carries the threat of exposure. The audience feels this tension building with her, the uncheckable question hovering like a guillotine. When will Derek find out? And more haunting still, what will he do when he does? Maya exists in this fragile in-between, torn between the flicker of hope Ethan represents and the consuming fear of Derek's retribution. This duality yearning in dread, hope, and terror is what propels the story forward, heightening the stakes and ensuring that every choice she makes carries the weight of survival. The climax ignites when Derek stumbles upon Ethan's sketches tucked into the corner of Maya's bag. One in particular, a portrait of her face, raw and unguarded, becomes the spark that detonates his fury. The drawing isn't romanticized. It shows her with tired eyes and bruised strength, a haunting reflection of the truth Derek has worked so hard to conceal. To him, it's evidence, twisted into betrayal. His voice erupts in accusations, venom dripping from every word as he screams that she's been unfaithful, that she's humiliated him. The mask of composure he wears for the world disintegrates, leaving only the unfiltered cruelty beneath. He grabs Maya, dragging her across the apartment with a violence that makes her fear, for the first time, that he might not just hurt her, he might kill her. Her desperation peaks. Survival instincts override her years of silence. With trembling fingers, she manages to clutch her phone and call the only person she believes might understand. Ethan. Her voice breaks as she whispers for help, her last thread of courage straining against Derek's rage. Ethan promises he's on his way, but Derek's grip tightens, his fury unrelenting. The stakes have escalated to life and death. And Maya realizes the secret world she built with Ethan has now collided with the nightmare of Derek's control. When Ethan arrives, he doesn't find fists flying, but words sharpened into weapons. Derek, ever the manipulator, shifts his strategy. Rather than striking Ethan physically, he seeks to annihilate him emotionally. He sneers, tearing into Ethan's past, mocking his years in foster care. Sneering that he is nothing but a broken boy no one wanted. He paints Ethan as worthless, unworthy of even standing in the same room, let alone offering solace to Maya. The cruelty is precise, aimed at reopening wounds Ethan has long since learned to carry. Maya watches in horror, torn between fear for Ethan and the sinking dread that Derek will succeed in dismantling the one person who has given her hope. But Ethan doesn't flinch. His calmness stands in stark contrast to Derek's unraveling rage. He meets Derek's venom with quiet strength, replying not with defense, but with truth. I'd rather be nothing than a man who breaks the woman he swore to protect. The words cut deeper than any insult Derek has hurled. They expose a core truth Derek cannot escape, that his power isn't strength, it's cowardice. For the first time, Maya sees Derek's confidence falter, his mask slipping as he sputters with indignation. It is not Ethan who crumbles under the weight of Derek's attack, but Derek himself. The confrontation becomes less about Derek versus Ethan and more about Maya versus the cage she has lived in. As Derek's mask cracks, she sees him with unclouded eyes, not the powerful man her mother worships, not the untouchable figure she has feared, but a pathetic shell desperate to maintain control. The insults he hurls bounce against Ethan's calm resilience, and in that contrast, Maya finds clarity. For years, she has believed Derek's words that she is weak, unworthy, unlovable. But in Ethan's refusal to be broken, she sees another possibility, that survival is not about enduring pain, but about rejecting it. Derek's power has always relied on her silence, her submission, and now, for the first time, she feels the strength to take it back. The choice crystallizes before her: remain in the prison Derek has built, or step into the terrifying unknown of freedom with Ethan's support. Her decision is not painted as easy. Fear still clings, and doubt still whispers. But clarity burns brighter. Maya steps forward, not just away from Derek, but toward herself, her voice steady as she rejects his hold. The scene doesn't close with triumphant victory, but with something far more powerful, the quiet courage of a woman choosing to no longer live in fear. The audience feels the weight of this shift. It is not the end of her struggle, but the beginning of her liberation. Maya's departure from Derek isn't a scene of fiery confrontation or cinematic escape. Instead, it is marked by a quiet strength that feels all the more powerful. She moves deliberately, packing only what she truly needs: a change of clothes, important documents, and her battered journal where she has started to reclaim her own voice. There are no long explanations, no second guessing, just resolve. When Derek discovers her absence, he rages in voicemails and messages, but this time his words don't sink into her bones. They wash over her, meaningless because she has taken the most important step. She's gone. With Ethan's steady support, she walks into the courthouse and files a restraining order, her voice trembling but firm as she recounts what she has endured. It is not a moment of victory, but one of reclamation, choosing to use the law, the very system she once felt trapped within as a paralegal, to begin defending herself. There are no fireworks, no grand speeches, only the quiet determination of a woman who has chosen survival on her own terms. This subtlety is what makes the act so resonant. It isn't about spectacle, it's about resolve. As Maya steps into her new life, Ethan becomes a steady presence, not as a savior sweeping her into a love story, but as a fellow survivor walking beside her. He helps her move into a small but sunlit apartment, a space that feels more like freedom than any mansion Derek could have offered. They share meals on the floor, unpacking boxes slowly, their silences as meaningful as their words. There are no rushed declarations of love, no expectation of filling the void Derek left. Instead, they become anchors for each other. Ethan shares pieces of his past nights of loneliness in foster homes, the sting of being called disposable, and Maya listens, recognizing the strength it takes to speak aloud what once felt unspeakable. In return, Maya opens about her own scars, not just the bruises, but the erosion of self-worth Derek instilled in her. What binds them is not romance, but recognition, a trust forged from shared resilience. Each step, whether small victories like laughing without fear, or simply waking up to a morning free of Derek's shadow, becomes a milestone. Their bond deepens not through passion, but through patience, showing that healing is not about being rescued, but about rebuilding with someone who understands the weight of survival. The final arc of Maya's journey isn't about escape alone, it's about empowerment. With therapy, she begins to unravel the knots of self-doubt and fear that Derek left behind. For the first time in years, she imagines a future not defined by survival but by purpose. She applies to law school, determined to fight for women whose voices have been silenced like hers. Her past as a paralegal becomes more than a job, it becomes the foundation for a mission, to ensure others don't feel as powerless as she once did. Meanwhile, Ethan finds his own healing by giving back. He takes a position teaching art workshops for foster teens, offering them the same outlet that once kept him alive. In guiding them to turn pain into expression, he begins to reframe his own scars as something that can inspire rather than define him. Together, they model a new kind of strength, not the kind born from perfection, but from imperfection embraced. Their paths remain intertwined, not because they are halves completing each other, but because they are whole individuals choosing to walk forward together. The resolution leaves the audience not with a fairy tale ending, but with something more enduring, a portrait of survival transformed into purpose, of scars becoming symbols of resilience, and of two people who, by choosing themselves first, find the possibility of healing side by side. A year after walking away from Derek's cage, Maya stands in a different kind of spotlight, one she chose for herself. The small lecture hall is filled with her classmates, professors, and a handful of observers, but to her, it feels as daunting as a real courtroom. She is about to deliver her first mock trial opening statement, and though her notes tremble slightly in her hands, there's a light in her eyes that wasn't there before. Her heart pounds not from fear of Derek's rage, but from the weight of stepping into her own power. She remembers the nights spent poring over case law in her tiny apartment, the therapy sessions that taught her how to untangle shame from identity, and the countless moments she almost gave up but didn't. From the back of the room, Ethan watches quietly, sketchbook resting on his knees. He doesn't cheer, doesn't make his presence known, he simply witnesses, the same way he did that first night in the diner. His role hasn't been to carry her, but to walk alongside her, giving space for her own strength to emerge. As Maya's voice steadies and her words sharpen with conviction, the audience sees what Ethan already knows. This is not a woman defined by her scars, but by her resilience. When the mock trial concludes, applause echoes lightly, but Maya's focus shifts immediately to the figure waiting near the back. Ethan approaches with his familiar quiet smile and extends his sketchbook to her, open to a fresh page. This time, the drawing isn't of bruises, cages, or shadows. It's of her standing in might, shoulders back, scars faintly etched but visible, not hidden. The image is powerful not because it erases her pain, but because it honors it as part of her story. Maya stares at the sketch, emotion swelling in her chest. For so long, she had lived believing that her scars made her less, that they were proof of her weakness. Yet here they are transformed into something undeniable and even beautiful, not as shame, but as survival. She turns to Ethan, her voice soft but sure. You didn't just see my scars. You saw me. It's not a confession of love, nor a plea for validation, but a recognition of what his presence has meant from the beginning, that he never tried to erase her past, only to honor it while reminding her she was more. The simplicity of that truth breaks through her like sunlight. Ethan responds not with grand declarations or dramatic gestures, but with the same quiet strength that has always defined him. He smiles softly, eyes steady, letting the silence carry the weight of his reply. No kiss seals the moment, no romantic climax demands attention, because the story isn't about romance saving her. It's about two scarred souls who found freedom in being seen for who they are, not in spite of their wounds, but with them. As they walk side by side out of the lecture hall, Maya feels no need to look back. The life she left, the cage, the fear, the silence feels like a distant echo, powerless against the woman she has become. The closing line, whether spoken aloud or as a voiceover, lingers as the truth of her journey. Sometimes the person who saves you isn't the one who fixes your scars, but the one who knows they exist and stays anyway. With that, the audience is left not with the false promise of perfection, but with the more resonant truth of healing slow, imperfect, but real. Maya's story closes not with an ending, but with a beginning, her scars intact, her strength undeniable, and her freedom fully her own.